Hey guys, today we're going to discuss the just basic usage of the useQuery React Apollo hooks. Apollo client is going to be used to pull data in from a GraphQL endpoint. For this video, we're going to use a public GraphQL endpoint. The Pokemon GraphQL endpoint is really easy to ping. It doesn't require any authorization or tokens or anything like that. So the endpoint for this Pokemon GraphQL is going to be right here, the https graphql pokemon.now.sh. As you can see here, this is just the basic setup of create React app, and then I have Apollo client. So I pulled in some packages. We're going to have the provider, which is going to provide the client instance to our app, and that's from Apollo React hooks. And then we have the client. We're going to use cache. We're not going to mess with the cache too much. I'm going to make another video on how to manage the local state and the cache for Apollo. And then the most basic setup you can have right here. You have you're declaring your cache. You have your client opening up. You're passing in the endpoint and the cache instance. And we're giving the provider, the client, to our app. Okay, so let's take a look at this GraphQL schema definition over here. So we can query this right now. You can't do any mutations on it, obviously, but you can query it. So you can get a list of Pokemons, and you can pick how many you want. With this, actually, this is a required field right here. You have to enter this in to get back the amount of Pokemons. Let's go here, and this is what you get back for a Pokemon. So you can request any of these for your Pokemons. All of these, a lot of these actually, like for example, attacks. So it's a Pokemon attack type, which means it has more stuff inside of it. So you have two attacks. You have his fast and a special. The attack name, type, and damage is the same for both. We're just going to pull top level information for this short video. This is just to show you how to pull data into your application. And how it works, and some of the things you can do with useQuery, the React hooks. So let's query. We're just going to query. Wait, oops, already got that. So let's get 10 Pokemons, and we're going to query the ID. Let's grab the name, and let's grab the weaknesses. And as you can see, I'm getting back the ID, the name, the weaknesses. So I've got 10 Pokemons here. And this is the data that we're going to pull into our React application, okay? I have a React application. It is running right now. Right over here. This is what it looks like. There's nothing in my list. So let's get that data in. Oh, and I highly recommend downloading the Apollo DevTools. Just Google download Apollo DevTools. Download them. They're for Google Chrome, and they're extremely helpful. You can literally run queries right here in the console. So we can run that same query we just ran over in the graphical playground. Get back the ID, the name, and the weaknesses. And because our Apollo client is hooked up, we're going to ping that data. We're going to get it back. So we got it back here. Also, when you are using Apollo client to handle your local state and your cache, no problem. You can view that here. And it will show up. Your queries and mutations and all your data will show up over here. Okay. Now let's get to the app. I already have basic, I'm using Material UI. I have a basic framework set up here to display the data, but we're gonna start pulling in the data. So the first thing that I would reach for is obviously the hook to pull it in, which is the useQuery hook. That's from Apollo React hooks. We're going to we're gonna do our query here in this file. So let's pull in GQL because you need this for the GraphQL syntax. And that's coming from Apollo Boost. And that's all we need. I have everything else pulled in here. Everything else is just UI related. It's not really, it doesn't have anything to do with what we're trying to do. So let's build that query first. So the first thing I'm going to do is build a query. You can name it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And again, this is assuming you already know this GraphQL syntax and how to use GraphQL. This is a good example because we are using variables to pull the data. You have to have that integer variable in there to get the data back. So it's going to look something like this. And we're going to create our first variable. And it's going to be a mandatory int. And now we're going to build our query, passing in the first variable. Let's get back the ID. Let's get back the name. And the weaknesses. Did I spell that right? Nope. Okay. So this is complete. We're going to get back, this is our query that we're going to use to pull the data into our application. Now, let's move on to building the query hook, useQuery hook, okay? So the useQuery hook is actually really cool, and it gives you a lot of options to use with this hook for the data. So, okay, so 3 things that you use right off bat. Use loading, error, and data. Data obviously is your return value, what you're going to get back, and what you're going to deal with in the front. I always include these 3 because when you use the useQuery hook, it's like a 3-step process. So at first it's loading. It's firing off the hook to get the data, and then if it's not loading and if it's not errored, then it's complete and you get your data. So if you're trying to show your data, and you don't have these conditions to catch these things in the front, sometimes you can get an error saying that data is undefined because your component loaded too quick and you didn't get your data back yet. So to manage that, you just put if you're loading, just return out of it whatever. You could put an animation in here, so you can have like a little spinning circle or a loading animation basically, and that would actually look pretty cool. And then we'll spit out an error. If obviously you'll handle your errors however you want anyway, but these 2 things will ensure that your data won't load before it's able to be read. So I put them in there. I would handle them differently, but I use them to catch anything before. Also, if you refer to the useQuery documentation, you'll see here that you have a ton of things that you can use with useQuery and pass and get back from it. So you can get back an instance of the client. You can get back a function that refetches your data. Where is that? Right here. You can get back a function that refetches your data. So if I were to put refetch in here, and I use this in like a button on the page, and I fired off that function with a button on the page, when they click that button, it will run that query again, and it will refresh and refetch my data. And that also updates your cache as well. You can start polling, so you can put in an interval to ping the server however many times you want. With any interval that you want. It's good for things like if you have somebody logged in and you want to ping the server every 5 or 10 minutes, and you want to time out a session or something, and you can do that, or you can make sure they're logged in and you can kick them off if the token's messed up or something, it will check them constantly. And it'd be good to refer to this and play with some of this stuff. It's really cool. You will use it. You will need to use it if you're building a real life application. You will dig into some of this stuff and find it very useful for anything basically. But for the sake of this tutorial and just the basic useQuery hook, we're going to stick with these three things. Now, we're going to get back this data, and we're going to have to just, oh, wait, first we have to pass variables in, because you need a variable. So you add on an object after the query, variables key, and it's going to be the first, and we're going to pull, in this case, 20 Pokemons. 20 Pokemons. Okay, down here is where we're going to put our data. It's going to be inside of the list. So let's see something really quick. Let's console log what we pulled from this query and make sure that it worked first, right? So save that. Everything's loaded here. I don't see any errors. And here we go. We got back our Pokemons. Open this up, crack this open, and here's all of our Pokemons. So we got the ID, we got the name, and we got the weaknesses, which is an array of items. And now we're going to display this to the app. It's also important to point out that our cache should have been updated. So now this is in our cache. This is in our local, you can call it local state. And you can use this throughout the application. So that's another reason why Apollo is so amazing. So you have all your Pokemon information here. And handling local client-side data is a little, it uses the same use queries and use mutations with @client directives. But there's some stuff with like updates to the cache and things like that, which is going to be another tutorial that I'll do. So let's get back to displaying this data on the field. We know it's there, so we're going to want to just, let's map through it, obviously. It's going to be data.pokemons.map. And we're just going to map through each one, calling it a poke. You always make sure you put your keys for your iterations. Otherwise, you'll get an error. And I'm going to do just a little Pokeball. Okay, so let's deal with this. Let's deal with this information coming back now. So the first thing we're going to want to display is the name of the Pokemon. And we're also going to display the weaknesses. It's an array, remember? So we're going to handle this with a join. Poke.weaknesses.join. And we're going to split it on the comma. All right. And that should do it. This will bring back our list of Pokemons. And there you go. All your Pokemons are here. That's 20 Pokemons. You can change this value here to get back 10. And you get back 10 Pokemons. This is the basic usage of useQuery. There is a lot more that useQuery involves as far as like its properties and stuff like that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will release a video soon on use mutation and use subscriptions, the React Apollo hooks, as well as local state management to kind of get you familiar with how to handle your data in the front, because GraphQL is very popular nowadays and Apollo is very popular nowadays, and it's an amazing framework tool. So please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more videos. I'll be releasing at least one video tutorial a week